Anna and Jake had once been the couple everyone admired. Their love had been effortless in the beginning, filled with late-night talks that stretched until dawn, spontaneous road trips with no set destination, and stolen kisses in grocery store aisles. They had built a life together, woven from inside jokes, shared dreams, and whispered promises about the future. He was her best friend, her confidant, the man she had pictured growing old with. 4 years, they did everything together, traveled the world, renovated their small apartment, cooked elaborate dinners just for the two of them. Every morning, Jake would wake her with a kiss on the forehead before heading to work, and every evening, he would pull her into his arms and tell her how lucky he was to have her. To everyone on the outside, they were perfect. And for a long time, Anna had believed it too. But beneath the beautiful moments, a quiet longing had grown in her heart. She wanted more. She wanted a family, a child to share their love with. And Jake wanted the same thing, or so he claimed. Anna had spent 10 years of her life waiting. 10 years of love, laughter, and patience. Yet the one thing she truly wanted remained just beyond her grasp. A family. A child. And Jake, the man she had built her world around, wanted the same thing, just not now. One day, he'd always say, "Just not yet." She'd waited. She'd compromised. She'd reasoned with herself that time would change things. That maybe he just needed a little more space, a little more time. That if she loved him enough, he would eventually be ready. But as the years passed, time had only made her realize the truth. Jake was never going to be ready. She had thought about leaving so many times. She had rehearsed the conversation in her head over and over, imagining herself packing her bags, walking out the door, and never looking back. But every time, something held her back. The love she still had for him, the memories of their happiest moments, the hope that maybe, just maybe, he would wake up one day and finally be ready. Her friends and family had spoken to him. They had gently nudged, outright asked, and sometimes even pleaded with him to see things from her perspective. "Jake, she's not going to wait forever," Anna's sister had told him one evening over dinner. "I know," Jake had responded, rubbing his temples, clearly tired of the conversation. "But I just don't feel like it's the right time yet." It was always the same answer, the same hesitation, the same excuse. If you are enjoying this story, please like and subscribe to the channel. Let's continue. And then, there were the darker thoughts. The ones she hated herself for even entertaining. The idea of simply getting pregnant and forcing his hand had crossed her mind more than once. But she knew that wasn't the kind of relationship she wanted. She didn't want to trap him, to manipulate their future. She wanted him to want it as much as she did. Then one day, reality struck her like a wave crashing against the shore. She was running out of time. She wasn't getting any younger, and the fear of waiting too long became all too real when she remembered her family history. Her mother had gone through early menopause, her sisters too. There was no guarantee that she had years to spare. She couldn't wait anymore. The realization was both liberating and devastating. She loved him, but love alone wasn't enough. She deserved to have the life she dreamed of, and he deserved to live the life he was comfortable with. And unfortunately, those two lives weren't aligned. It was over. The decision to leave had been brutal, a deep wound she inflicted on herself as much as on him. She had ended their decade-long relationship just days before they were set to embark on a luxury cruise, a trip that was supposed to be a celebration of their years together. Instead, it had become a cruel reminder of all she had lost. Jake had refused to go. "You're really doing this?" he had asked, his voice tight with disbelief when she told him she was leaving. "I have to, Jake," she had whispered, tears in her eyes. "I can't keep waiting for something that might never happen. I am not getting any younger. We want different things at this moment." He had looked at her, searching for something, anything, that might convince her to stay. But she saw it in his eyes, the same reluctance, the same hesitation. He still wasn't ready. And that was all the answer she needed. She had considered canceling, dialing the cruise line with a desperate hope that they might make an exception. But the answer was firm. Company policy did not allow refunds or reschedules so close to the departure date. Frustrated but determined not to let the trip go to waste, she turned to Facebook, posting about the vacation package at a steep discount, hoping someone would jump at the chance. A few people messaged her, expressing interest, but as soon as she explained the last-minute nature of the deal, they hesitated. Some stopped responding, others expressed concern that it seemed too good to be true. After days of trying and failing to sell the trip, she sat in her apartment, exhausted from the emotional weight of it all. But as she stared at the untouched suitcase in the corner of the room, something shifted. What if this was an opportunity rather than a burden? What if, instead of mourning what she had lost, she used the trip as a way to heal? She was already broken. Perhaps the ocean air and a change of scenery could help her breathe again. So, instead of giving in to her sadness, she packed her bags. If nothing else, she needed space to clear her head. And maybe, just maybe, this trip could be the beginning of something new. If you are enjoying this story, please like and subscribe to the channel. Let's continue. The first few days on the ship were miserable. She spent hours staring at the endless horizon, salty tears blending with the ocean spray. She had walked away from the life she had built, yet here she was, drowning in regret. Had she made a mistake? Should she have waited longer? Then, on the second night, something happened that made her wish she had cancelled. She had been restless, unable to sleep, so she wandered to the ship's bar for a drink, hoping the warmth of liquor would dull her thoughts. Instead, she encountered a honeymooning couple at the next table, glowing with newlywed joy. They shared stories of their whirlwind romance, how they had met, how they knew they were meant to be together, and Anna forced a smile as they gushed about their plans to start a family soon. Their happiness was a sharp contrast to her reality, a bitter reminder of everything she had wanted but never had. It took everything in her not to burst into tears right there. Excusing herself, she hurried to the deck, gasping for air, as though the weight of her regret was physically suffocating her. Each night, she wandered the deck, her thoughts a tangled mess of what ifs. She watched couples hold hands, lean into each other, and laugh under the moonlight. She imagined herself and Jake here, happy, unburdened by the weight of uncertainty. But no amount of imagination could change reality. She had been alone in that relationship long before she walked away. On the third day, she tripped while descending a staircase near the pool deck, tumbling forward, her knee colliding painfully with the hard surface. The sting of the fall was nothing compared to the humiliation of scrambling to her feet as a group of sunbathers watched with mild amusement. A kind crew member helped her up, and though she brushed it off, the incident made her feel even more alone, vulnerable in a way she hadn't expected. She had thought this trip would be an escape, a chance to clear her mind. But now, she wasn't sure if it was healing her or breaking her further. One evening, as she sat alone on the deck, lost in thought, she exhaled deeply, hugging her arms around herself, when suddenly, a deep voice interrupted her solitude. "You look like someone with a lot on their mind." She startled slightly, turning her gaze to the source of the voice. Standing beside her was a man, tall, dark-haired, with a quiet strength in his posture and eyes that mirrored her own sadness. He wasn't just striking, there was something about him, something familiar, as though he carried his own unspoken burdens. If you are enjoying this story, please like and subscribe to the channel. Let's continue. Daniel hadn't planned on being on that cruise alone. In fact, he hadn't planned on taking the trip at all. It was supposed to be a dream he and his wife would one day fulfill, a promise made on quiet nights as they lay in bed, talking about all the places they would see together. They had envisioned this trip for years, mapping out every detail, picturing themselves standing hand in hand at the ship's railing, watching the endless ocean stretch before them. But life had other plans. His wife, Claire, had fallen ill. It had started with something small, fatigue, persistent headaches. Then the tests came, the appointments, the long, painful treatments. Daniel had watched helplessly as the woman he loved faded before his eyes, her body betraying her, their dreams slipping away piece by piece. He had held her hand through it all, whispering reassurances, promising that when she got better, they would go on that trip, that they would finally take the vacation they had always talked about. She never got better. The loss had gutted him, leaving a void so vast he feared he would never find his way out. He couldn't bear to touch the suitcase they had packed together, still sitting in their bedroom, a silent reminder of everything they had lost. The cruise tickets remained untouched, a painful relic of a future that would never be. For a long time, he thought about canceling. But something stopped him. Maybe it was grief. Maybe it was the aching need to feel close to her, even in the most intangible of ways. Maybe it was just the unbearable silence of their home, the empty side of the bed that would never be filled again. So he went. The first few days on the ship had been torturous. Every smiling couple reminded him of what he had lost. Every sunset felt like an unspoken mockery of the love he once believed would last forever. He spent his nights at the bar, nursing drinks he didn't enjoy, trying to drown the ache that refused to fade. He had no interest in meeting anyone, no desire to make conversation. And yet, on that fateful evening when he saw her sitting alone, wrapped in the same sadness that had become his shadow, something pulled him toward her. He hadn't expected Anna. He hadn't expected to feel anything at all. But somehow, in the middle of the vast, endless ocean, he found a connection he never saw coming. He avoided conversation, rejected small talk, and had no interest in meeting anyone new. But grief has a strange way of shifting when you least expect it. On that fateful evening, as he wandered aimlessly to the ship's deck, he saw her, Anna. She was sitting alone, arms wrapped around herself, staring at the same endless horizon he had been drowning in. There was something about her, something hauntingly familiar. It wasn't just sadness, it was loneliness, the kind that settles deep in your bones, the kind that makes you feel like you are the only person left in the world. "Beautiful view, isn't it?" he said again, his voice softer this time, almost hesitant, as if unsure whether she wanted company. She nodded, but instead of responding, she turned her attention back to the vast expanse of water. Silence stretched between them, not awkward, but heavy with unspoken emotions. When she finally spoke, her voice was laced with exhaustion. "It is. But sometimes, beautiful things just remind us of everything we've lost." He studied her for a moment before speaking. "Yeah, I get that." Something about his tone made her look at him again, this time with curiosity. He wasn't just making conversation, he meant it. He understood. And suddenly, she wanted to know more. "I'm Anna," she said, offering a small, tired smile. "Daniel," he replied, his lips curling into a smile of his own. "Mind if I join you?" And just like that, the weight of loneliness on her shoulders felt a little lighter. Conversation came easily between them. What started as casual small talk soon unraveled into hours of deep, unfiltered honesty. Anna found herself speaking in a way she hadn't in years, as if an invisible dam had broken inside her. She poured out everything. How she had spent 10 years waiting for a man who could never give her what she needed, how she had sacrificed her dreams for a future that never came, how she had felt like she was slowly fading into the background of her own life. If you are enjoying this story, please like and subscribe to the channel. Let's continue. The more she spoke, the harder it became to hold back the tears. Before she knew it, she was crying, her body trembling with the weight of everything she had been carrying alone for so long. She tried to apologize, embarrassed by her sudden outburst, but Daniel simply reached out and took her hand, squeezing it gently. "You don't have to apologize," he said softly. "Sometimes, you just need someone to listen." And he did. He didn't interrupt. He didn't offer empty reassurances or tell her things would magically get better. He just sat there, silently absorbing her pain, letting her unload years of suppressed emotions without judgment. His presence was a quiet anchor in the storm raging inside her. That night, they ended up in her cabin, their loneliness intertwining into something beautiful. What was supposed to be a fleeting moment of comfort turned into something deeper, a close friendship neither of them could have predicted. The days that followed were spent together, laughing, exploring, and finding solace in each other's company. She had set out on that cruise searching for clarity. She had left behind a love that was stuck in the past. But instead of just finding something fresh and genuine, she found Daniel. One of the nights they spent together toward the end of the cruise, they talked for hours, sharing secrets and fears they had never voiced before. It felt as if they had known each other forever, as if fate had brought them together at exactly the right time. The night before they were set to part ways, something shifted between them. The realization that their time together was ending made them reckless, and without thinking, without hesitation, they gave in to their emotions. Their bodies intertwined in the dim glow of his cabin, and when it was over, they laughed breathlessly. "What happens on the cruise stays on the cruise, right?" Daniel joked, brushing her hair away from her face. She smiled, but deep down, something told her this wasn't just a fleeting moment. After the cruise, they kept in touch. She had set out for clarity, but it seemed like she had found something new. A few weeks later, Anna started feeling off. She assumed it was the stress of the cruise, the emotions of everything she had been through, but as the days passed and she still wasn't feeling better, she decided to see her doctor. He ran a few tests, and when he returned with the results, she nearly fell out of her chair. She was pregnant. Over 8 weeks along. She couldn't believe it. She sat in stunned silence, her heart pounding. Her mind raced with possibilities. What did this mean? Should she even tell Daniel? Part of her thought about keeping it to herself, cutting contact and raising the baby alone. It would be easier, cleaner. But another part of her, a part she couldn't ignore, knew that wasn't fair. Not to him. Not to their child. For days, she wrestled with the decision. But in the end, the kind of friendship and sincerity they shared wouldn't allow her to keep something this big from him. So, she called him. When she finally told him, she braced for hesitation, for regret, for panic. But his reaction stunned her. "You're pregnant," he repeated, his voice filled with disbelief. Then, after a moment, his tone changed, warmer, filled with something she hadn't expected. "Anna, that's amazing. I can't believe it. I'm going to be a father." Tears welled in her eyes. "You're happy?" "Of course, I am. And more than that, I want to do this with you. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. If you want me there, I'll be there. I can even relocate if that's what it takes. Honestly, I need a fresh start too." Anna had thought she was alone in this. But in that moment, she realized she wasn't. She had found something unexpected, something real, something lasting. A fresh start. And this time, she wasn't drifting. She was finally home. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one.